So this is your virtual tour. Here we are approaching what is called the Valley Temple. The Valley Temple is to the right of the Sphinx itself, and these giant blocks were cut out from what is called the Sphinx enclosure. Now what you can clearly see here there are massive granite blocks which were placed in front of a core of bigger limestone blocks. And the erosion on the limestone is very significant. As well, the floor is made of very tight-fitting limestone segments. In some cases, you can't fit a human hair in the cracks. In other cases, it's heavily eroded. And then here we are outside, walking towards what is called the Sphinx Temple, which is right in front of the Sphinx itself. Again, these blocks were cut out from the Sphinx enclosure. And these very ornate and finely crafted granite blocks were once part of the top of the exterior of the wall. Look at the level of precision. Now here we're looking in behind the gate, and you can see there are other granite blocks that have fallen down in the past and are lined up. We're now walking inside the Valley Temple, past these two caretakers. Again, note the size of the granite blocks. And the floor here is made of a type of alabaster. We're looking down into what was a shaft. And now we're about to walk inside of the Valley Temple. Note the size of these huge granite pillars and the strange weathering patterns that are on them. Looks very much like water. But there hasn't been water in this area for a very long time. And the incredible precision of some of the surfaces. Why, for example, is this black granite or syenite block so well preserved, whereas the others are heavily eroded? Alone, more or less, in the Valley Temple on the Giza Plateau. And clearly what you're looking at is an incredibly ancient structure. And as I've said many times, as have other authors such as Stephen Mailer, Graham Hancock, etc., this was constructed thousands of years before the dynastic Egyptians ever existed. It is truly megalithic. At the base of these pillars, you're seeing signs of water damage to granite pillars. And it hasn't rained significantly in the Giza Plateau area for at least 10,000 years. That will also explain the weathering on the Sphinx. The granite either comes from Aswan or from eastern Egypt, possibly the Sinai or the eastern desert, whereas the limestone was quarried on site. Of course, you're looking at huge slabs of stone that could not have been either cut, nor moved, nor likely put into place during the time of the Bronze Age dynastic Egyptians. So we have to presume, including the weathering, that we're looking at a much, much older structure. Now look at the erosion on these surfaces. Most of the time this has been buried in sand, or buried with sand, going very high up. So what would account for this excessive erosion, aside from the fact that it's been here for a very, very long time?
Belgium, yes?
Peru,
From is Belgium?
Peru,
Peru.
South America.
South America, yes.
Yes. Note the vertical erosion. According to Robert Schoch and many other geologists, including our own Susan Moore, this could only have been achieved by huge amounts of precipitation. And again, it hasn't rained here in the Giza Plateau area for at least 10,000 years. So with the amount of extreme erosion on the Sphinx, that's telling us that it, again, was carved more than 10,000 years ago, which, as I'm sure most of you know, is at least, or is about, twice as old as the time that the dynastic people have been in Egypt. The massive blocks of the Sphinx Temple and Valley Temple in front of me, which originally were one structure, they were hewn out of this area here. So the Sphinx was not made by being cut out or shaped. Megaton blocks, or megalithic blocks, were cut out and moved in front in order to create that shape. And again, you're not talking about something that was likely possible, or let's just admit it, not possible, during the time of the dynastic Egyptians. So when they arrived here 5,000 to 6,000 years ago, they found the Sphinx in place, and they found these three pyramids and some others in the area called the Land of Osiris, or Bu Wizard, already there. And that's why they're so heavily eroded. We're on our way through this small town to a location you probably never heard of. It's called Abu Sir, and it's a site of great antiquity that has dynastic works as well as evidence of lost ancient high technology, which would in fact be older than any of the dynastic works. Again, it's called Abu Sir, and you need special permission, which we were able to get in order to visit it. This is at Abu Sir itself, and as you can see, it's been terribly decimated over the course of time, from invading armies, people simply using the ancient site as a quarry. And here you see pillars, which are made of granite. The granite itself came from Aswan, which is likely 500 miles away. And we also see evidence, and abundant evidence in this location especially, of strange drill holes in very hard stone, which again could not have been done by the dynastic Egyptians. These are tube drill holes which would have to at least be embedded with diamonds in order to achieve such size and such depth. So the mystery is, who was the culture that had technology of this level thousands of years before our time and thousands of years before the time of the dynastic Egyptians?
Right inside. It's very straight through. Beautiful. Very good.
So here you see the level of the devastation of invading cultures and armies, and such a sad sight to see. However, there's also evidence that a massive cataclysm of some kind struck this site actually prior to dynastic times. And the timeline we're looking at is 12,000 years ago. Look at the weird erosion on these limestone posts, as if they were burned by something. And then also these amazing granite stone boxes, one which is shattered, but the other is almost intact. In order to get at them, you have to go down through this hole and down this chute and out the other end. Now the crispness of the edges and the flat surfaces could not have been achieved with hand tools, so we are looking at some form of advanced technology being employed in order to shape these surfaces. The edges are incredibly crisp after thousands of years, and the curved surfaces are perfectly curved. There are no depressions, no protrusions. So again, it's a mystery as to who did this work, but that's why we encourage you to come with us in March of 2018 and see for yourself. Again, we have these strange, heavily eroded surfaces. So here at Abu Sir, what I've been showing is the fact that in general, this site is dynastic. Everything lines up north, south, east, and west. However, there are pre-dynastic elements here that are 23 degrees off north, south, east, and west. And that goes along with my theory about a massive cataclysm happening here in the Giza Plateau area 12,000 years ago. The major damage from this cataclysm seems to be here in what is more or less the center of the ancient land called Bu-Wizir, or the land of Osiris. And then when we go south and north, the damage becomes less and less. At one end you have Dashur with the bent pyramid and the red pyramid. The skin of the pyramids is sloughed off. And then the other direction, you go to the Giza Plateau, same thing. The three great pyramids are still there, generally intact, but the skin, or casing stone, is missing.
Kind of seems out of place, doesn't it? Just
Yeah. Well, you see all the saw marks in this?
yeah.
So those saw marks that you saw would require diamond level of technology, because the stone is basalt, or possibly even a harder siltstone of some kind. And that's not something, as you know by now, that the dynastic Egyptians had. So they clearly inherited ancient sites that appear to have been devastated by some cataclysmic activity. And that, of course, is recounted in my book, Aftershock.
What we can see here is clear marking of a circular giant saw. We can see from the pattern here that it's circling, and we can see that the lines also are all continuing in a circular, not a straight line. And when we talk about if we complete this circle, it's not going to be less than 8 meters, right?
Yeah.
Cannot be less than 8 meters wide.
It was at least 20 feet in diameter and 3/16 of an inch thick.
Yeah.
And it's penetrated the stone 2 millimeters per revolution, which is 500 times more efficient than what we have in the 21st century.
Yeah. So again, no scenes on the walls displayed any method of cutting the stones using a saw. We only understood this from the marking of the stone on the stone itself, from the marking of the tool on the surface of the stone. Also, if we want to know how thick that tool was, we can look here from the corner, and you can see part that is still curving back on the higher part here. You see that? That will tell us how thick this blade was, which was probably around 4 millimeter thick. That's huge to take this kind of machining, the heat, the scratches from circling. So we don't believe copper can be able to do this. We cannot see also the scenes, but we want to make more like experiments about this type of stone. And
Another obvious question is, where does this stone come from? And according to our geologist, Susan Moore, and according to the Geology Museum in Cairo, the Eastern Desert, a deposit at least 200 kilometers away. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe as you look at another ancient saw mark using some level of high technology. And come with us to Egypt in March of 2018. Being there is 1,000 times more interesting than looking at this video or looking at photos of the evidence. Being there makes a huge difference. Okay, now we're heading to Abu Ghurab, or Abu Ghorab, or Abu Jurab, which is a dynastic site, but it also has some very curious pre-dynastic elements, a lot of evidence of lost ancient high-technology machining. So this is Abu Ghurab. You can see it looks like a desert wasteland, right on the edge, though, of where there is life. And here we find these large bowl-like things that were found by Flinders Petrie, I believe in the 19th century. And you can see the hole that is strategically located right in the center of each one, but not at the bottom. So very curious. These unlikely were done by hand. Much more likely they were done with some kind of advanced technology. They were not found all together as you see them now, but they were lined up, possibly to be sent to the Cairo Museum, but actually never made it there. So you see, in terms of the detail, these depressions and these weird cog-like knobs, again, we see signs of machine marks in them. So again, Likely they were done using some form of high technology. They're also heavily weathered in places. It's most probable that they were found buried underground and were lined up like this. Quite strange. And then as we turn, we see the ruins of a small pyramid that was destroyed in some strange manner. Also, there's a slight curve here where the hole enters the bowl, as if that was where liquid moved into the bowl. And then around the rim, very machine-like curve or depression, as if done by some kind of router. Now, as we advance towards the pyramid, we're coming up first to a very fascinating construction out of stone called the Hotep. And this is comprised of large pieces of the crystalline stone. As you can see, actually there are 6 pieces. And here again, the curvature where the vertical and horizontal surfaces meet are so smooth and even, it's as if they were done by some kind of router. And then we see flat surfaces, which are almost perfectly flat. Very difficult to do by hand. And again, where the horizontal and vertical surfaces meet, we also see some kind of tube drill evidence. And then we have an overview of the Hotep. And here you can see with the compass that this little pyramid is about 23 or 24 degrees off north, south, east, and west, which is quite curious because normally they're lined up perfectly north, south, east, and west. And some of the casing stone is still present, but the whole pyramid, rather than being bashed by vandals, it literally looks like it exploded. And here again we find more evidence of ancient tube drilling. And the Hotep is comprised of 6 pieces. You can see at the bottom there that horizontal machine cutting mark. And some believe that this is actually the lid of a shaft that goes down and interconnects with a tunnel system. So the Hotep is made out of a stone called travertine, and it is created in places of volcanic activity with liquid water pools. According to our geologist, Susan Moore, there may not be a large enough area of travertine located in Egypt, so it may have actually been brought in from another part of the Middle East. It's in 6 sections and perfectly aligned to north, south, east, and west, but the pyramid in behind is 23 degrees off. So the pyramid was created prior to the time of the pharaonic Egyptians, and in fact possibly 12,000 plus years ago. This, no one knows when this was made. So again, like we've seen at other locations, especially in the Giza Plateau area, though they say that the pyramids are in such bad shape because they were quarried, maybe even during dynastic times, the damage looks cataclysmic, as if it was struck by something, possibly high heat, and that fits in with the theory of Dr. Robert Schoch, the geologist, that solar plasma may have actually struck specific parts of the Earth around 12,000 years ago, and that would have caused this cataclysmic damage because the core is just a mess. You would think that if it was being slowly quarried, that the core would still be intact, but it does look like a high heat event just blew and cracked the entire pyramid, including the center. Luckily, some of the casing stone is still here, but of course all of the upper casing stone is gone because it would have been literally blown off. Abu Sir and Abu Ghurab are not seen by tourists, and in general, they are off limits. You require special permission from the Ministry of Antiquities to visit these sites. The explanation or reasoning for that is unknown, but we are here because we have permission thanks to the Kemet School located in Giza, in Egypt. Check out their website at www.chematology.com. They are the only people, in my opinion, who can properly show you dynastic as well as pre-dynastic, super ancient Egypt. Now, on the other side of the pyramid are these sandstone bowls that have 3 holes drilled in them. Look at the level of weathering and wear on them. They too were most likely found buried underground, and they have clearly been vandalized over the course of time. No one has a clue what these originally were used for. Egyptologists say they were bowls for sacrificial blood, but how would you drain the blood out if the hole is not in the bottom? So to me, this entire site, yes, it's been vandalized over the course of time. Some of the stone appears to have scorch heat marks, and so I think this is a very good candidate for the ancient cataclysm of 12,000 years ago. What I'm saying is that 5,000 years ago, the dynastic Egyptians found this and the Giza Plateau and other structures in the area in a state of decay. They renamed them and they reused them for their own purposes. But whoever the original builders were still eludes us to this very day.